I heard an individual talking to Charlie, and I happened to kind of glance over the edge of the railing about that time. I could see the right side of Charlie's shoulder, so not his whole body, because he was underneath the tent, so I could only see probably the right side of his body. He was answering a question, kid asked him a question, and then I heard a shot fired.
Do you know what time that was?
Yes.
What time was that?
12:23.
What did you see?
At that moment, I saw him lean to the left, so
When you say him, you see
Charlie.
Charlie?
Charlie Kirk. So I saw him go to the left because I could no longer see the right side of his body. So he went further underneath the tent to the north side of the tent, so left.
A police officer standing on a rooftop hears a single gunshot. He looks down and sees Charlie Kirk slump to the left, disappearing beneath the white tent where he'd been answering questions moments before. The officer runs toward the gunfire. He secures the scene. He finds an empty holster on the grass. Then he looks up at the building in his direct line of sight and thinks, that's where the shot came from. That's where this story begins. Not with the charges, not the arrest, not the press conference. With one officer, one sound, one decision about where to look next. Tyler Robinson was charged with the aggravated murder of Charlie Kirk on September 10th, 2025.
The assassination of Charlie Kirk, a moment caught on video and seen by millions of people around the world, shook the nation. A young father, husband, and iconic figure shot and killed in public. The murder was shocking, but then came the investigation and the arrest.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him.
Tyler Robinson was arrested and charged with the murder, and investigators talked about all the evidence they had, including surveillance video. For prosecutors, this seemed like a very straightforward case with overwhelming evidence.
The shooting happened in broad daylight at Utah Valley University, in front of thousands, captured on surveillance video. Within hours, 2 other individuals were briefly detained and cleared before investigators zeroed in on Robinson. When prosecutors held their press conference on September 16, they laid out what looked like an overwhelming case: surveillance footage of a suspect entering campus at 11:51 a.m.
Approximately 15 minutes into the event, Mr. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings by transgender individuals when a gunshot rang out. The bullet struck Mr. Kirk in the neck. He slumped to the ground almost immediately.
Hold it right
the
there
bullets
for a second, right off the top. And I'm wondering how big of a role that may have played if he's talking about transgender individuals, and that's the subject matter of what Charlie Kirk was talking about at the moment, in light of what we've learned about Tyler Robinson and his personal life and his lover transitioning or attempting to transition. To me, as a prosecutor, I would use that evidence. Like that plays right into the entire case that you're trying to build. Let's watch some more.
bullet's trajectory passed closely to several other individuals beside Mr.
In a black flag print shirt and sunglasses, walking with an unusual gait consistent with a hidden rifle. Footage of him climbing onto a rooftop and fleeing moments after the shot. A bolt-action rifle recovered nearby, wrapped in a towel with 1 spent and 3 unspent rounds. A note found under his keyboard reading, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Text messages in which he admitted the shooting. Family members who recognized him, and a father who convinced him to surrender. That's the case prosecutors presented, and it's the case the defense had to chip away at when the preliminary hearing began. A preliminary hearing isn't a trial, it's a screening step.
But now we'll get to see and hear the evidence in a courtroom as prosecutors try to convince a judge that there's enough evidence to try Tyler Robinson for murder. The preliminary hearing will be the first opportunity for the public to judge for themselves the evidence and determine if Tyler Robinson is in fact the man responsible for the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Prosecutors only need to show probable cause, a low bar, not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The odds favor the prosecution heavily. which is why what happened in this hearing carries weight. The first witness was Officer Chris Baggley of the Utah Valley University Police Department. Not someone reviewing footage afterward, but someone who was there, on a rooftop overlooking the courtyard where Kirk was speaking. At 12:23 p.m., Baggley heard a single gunshot, saw Kirk lean left and vanish from view, and then watched the crowd erupt into chaos. He ran toward the gunfire, jumping over people on the stairs to reach the bottom.
At that moment, I recognized it as gunfire. I left my post, which was right there on the south end of the Hall of Flags. I proceeded to right where the Fugle and the Hall of Flags meet. There's some outside stairs that I was starting to run down. As I was trying to get down to the bottom of the stairs, people were running up, people were laying down on the steps. I'm trying to jump over people to get to the bottom of the stairs so I can help stop an individual that's probably shooting.
What happened next?
Second. Just a reminder of the difference between us and them. I'm talking about law enforcement. We hear the gunshots. We're heading for cover. We're getting away from it. He's running towards it to try to help and save others. Let's watch.
Next.
By the time I got to the bottom of the stairs, I was informed on the radio that we had a shooter in custody.
By the time he got there, radio traffic said a shooter was in custody. He began securing the scene, pushing people back, protecting evidence. Then he saw an empty pistol holster on the grass, and something clicked. The shot he'd heard hadn't sounded like a pistol. It was a rifle, which meant the shooter wasn't in the crowd. He was somewhere else.
Just from being around firearms through all my trainings, the difference is, a handgun is more of a short bang pop sound. With a rifle, you have more of a longer, violent bang or crackle sound. It's more of a violent kind of sound. It's longer, so that's why I recognized it.
Okay. Is a rifle sound louder typically?
Yes.
Okay. Going back to when you heard this gunshot, could you tell where it came from? From direction?
Yes, I knew it came from the east of me.
From the east of you. Okay.
Baggley looked up, spotted the lossy building with its clear sight line to the tent, and ran. Through a building, up 4 flights, across a breezeway, up an external stairway, reaching the rooftop at 12:44 p.m., 21 minutes after the shot. There, in the gravel, sat a red and black screwdriver, out of place, possibly used to assemble or conceal something. He left it untouched and secured the scene. The cross-examination targeted the gaps. Did Baggley collect the holster?
Mr. Ballard engaged in extrajudicial communications with multiple media entities. On March 31st, 2026, Mr. Ballard was quoted by TMZ stating, "Generally, when a bullet fragment analysis comes back as inconclusive, that means the fragment did not contain enough detail for the examiner to say one way or the other. There's just not enough there to determine whether the bullet was fired by a particular firearm. We have ample evidence to demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt that Tyler Robinson committed this murder, and we will present some of that evidence at the upcoming preliminary hearing, and we will present all that evidence at trial." Mr. Ballard further stated, "He is presumed innocent. The ultimate decision will be up to the jury. We believe we will be."
We have ample evidence to demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt that Tyler Robinson committed this murder. He is presumed innocent. We believe we will be able to overcome his presumption of innocence. Normally, nothing is unusual about a prosecutor believing in his own case. That's the job. But under a gag order, none of that can be said publicly. The defense moved to strike the death penalty entirely, citing the Lori Vallow case as precedent, where discovery violations led a judge to take death off the table.
A lot harder. One of the things that happened in this case was that there's a gag order, but there was a leak of some information and some misinterpretation of that information by the media. And to correct it all, prosecutors spoke out despite the gag order, which was very problematic. So the defense made a lot of noise about it and wanted the death penalty taken off this case, removed, because prosecutors had violated the gag order. So let's take a listen to the judge ruling on this motion, because this could be very significant. If you remember, in the Lori Daybell case out a few years ago, there were problems. There were mistakes made by prosecutors in the discovery sense of the litigation. And as a result, the judge there penalized prosecutors by removing the potential death sentence for Lori Daybell. So that's what's happening here.
The judge held an evidentiary hearing. Both Ballard and Utah County Attorney Jeffrey S. Gray testified under oath. The ruling that followed was careful and thorough. On the bullet fragment comments, the judge found Ballard protected by Rule 3.6c's safe harbor provision, which allows attorneys to correct prejudicial or misleading media coverage. But the guilt-related comments were different. The judge found they weren't necessary to correct any confusion about forensic evidence. They simply expressed an opinion on the defendant's guilt, which Rule 3.6 explicitly prohibits. The judge noted Ballard's nod to the presumption of innocence was immediately undercut by his declared confidence in overcoming it.
Could respond, but whether a reasonable lawyer would have believed the additional statements concerning the overall strength of the prosecution's evidence were necessary to mitigate the specific prejudice created by the inaccurate reporting concerning the ATF examination, stating that the prosecution has ample evidence to demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt that Tyler Robinson committed this murder, reasonably communicated to the public the prosecutor's assessment of the defendant's guilt, that the defendant was guilty. This directly violates comment 5, Roman numeral 4 of Rule 3.6, which prohibits expressing any opinion as to the guilt or innocence of a defendant. While Mr. Ballard offered a cursory nod to the presumption of innocence, he immediately undercut it by publicly broadcasting his belief that the state will overcome his presumption of innocence.
The judge found Ballard in civil contempt by clear and convincing evidence, but ruled that striking the death penalty would be disproportionate and wasn't legally available under civil contempt. The death penalty stays. Instead, the judge ordered expanded jury vetting procedures and awarded the defense attorneys fees for litigating the motion. So the case moves forward. But the prosecutor now carries a contempt finding the defense can raise at trial, a built-in argument that he's too invested, too biased, not to be trusted.
Okay, so the death penalty stays, but this is a prime example of lawyers lawyering. Like, to me, the part of this that makes, I get it, the judge is making sense, but what doesn't make sense is a prosecutor saying, I believe we have enough evidence here to prove the defendant guilty. Like, if a prosecutor doesn't believe that, they shouldn't be bringing the case in the first place. Like, ethically, that is, to me, a bigger problem. Like, if you bring a case you don't believe you have enough evidence to prove. The problem is he's saying it out loud. He's saying it out loud. He's proclaiming it after there's a gag order. He's saying, yes, we have the evidence to prove this case, which he'll say in front of the jury in his opening statement, by the way. To me, I get what the defense was doing. I don't understand why prosecutors would risk it in a case like this. But the problem wasn't correcting the record about the bullet fragment, which is what the statement was all about. It was the next statement that he made saying, we're going to prove this case despite the fact that he's presumed innocent, which is basically him saying, I'm a prosecutor, I'm going to do my job.
Would Ballard have been better off staying silent and letting a false media narrative about the bullet fragment stand uncorrected? Or was this simply the pull that so many prosecutors feel in high-profile cases? The urge to push back against skeptics and conspiracy theories in public? Because that skepticism is real, and it's amplified by politics. Kirk was a conservative activist. His killing became a political flashpoint, and public opinion split accordingly, with some insisting the real killer is still out there.
And there's actually been another statement that's been released by Erica Kirk on her X account as this preliminary hearing is beginning. Statement on behalf of Charlie Kirk's immediate family, his parents, Robert and Catherine, his wife Erica, and his sister Mary. And I think this is part of the story that can't get lost because of who he was publicly. At the end of the day, like I said, he's a husband, he's a father. Charlie was a beloved husband, son, brother, friend, and father. Every court proceeding serves as a painful reminder of his death and the loss that has irrevocably impacted our lives and the lives of his children. Like, that's forever. Regardless of the verdict at the end of a case, that is forever. The only thing families can get at this point is some sense of justice, where they can turn the page and say, okay, someone's been held responsible. We remain deeply grateful for the support, prayers, and kindness we have received. The outpouring has sustained us during the darkest days of our lives. What this case is doing, which is different than most cases because of the public nature of it, is that we are seeing it kind of play out publicly. What a family goes through, the pain, the difficulty in trying to move forward. And for the Kirk family, it's been, I think, exponentially increased by everything that is happening online, all the chatter. But part of that is the outpouring of support, which is helping them through all of this. Out of respect for the judicial process, we will not be commenting further at this time. We ask for continued privacy as we navigate this process and immense grief.
That's worth honoring. Behind every headline is a family. A wife who lost her husband, parents who lost their son, friends who lost someone they loved. This case isn't really about politics or conspiracy theories. It's about a life taken and the slow, imperfect search for justice. Until next time, hug your kids, hold them close, and remember, the legal system isn't really about the law. It's about people trying to do the right thing, even when the right thing isn't clear.